Ready to begin, and I want to welcome you here tonight. Oops, I guess maybe I'll hold this. It might work better. Can you hear me better now? Yes. Oh, okay, good. I have introduced this program before to you, and it's a pleasure to be here again to do it. I live on 3 Nichols Way, and I am very happy to present this evening for the Greater Haverhill League of Women Voters. I am very pleased that this year Stephanie Trainer, who was with us last year as moderator, can be with us again. Stephanie is a member of the North Andover League, and she is also the field service representative of the state for the North Shore Leagues and the Greater Haverhill Leagues, I should say. So, in a moment, I will ask Stephanie to explain to you the procedures for the evening and to introduce the candidates as we come along. But first, I would like to give recognition to Valerie Osborne for all her work as moderator and for the many years that she is dedicated to town meeting and keeping things moving not slowly, quickly. So I would like to ask you to stand and give her a round of applause. And now I will turn the meeting over to Stephanie Trainer, who will explain how it's all going to work. I think many of you know it anyway from being here in the past. But Stephanie, thank you so much for being here.
Yes, thank you, Ruth. And thank you to the Greater Haverhill League for inviting me to serve as your moderator this evening. Can you all hear me? Not really? Not so well. Okay, maybe this better? Yes. Okay, all right. So, as many of you may know, the League is a nonpartisan national organization that encourages informed and active participation in government. Over the course of tonight's program, you'll learn more about what some of the candidates running for local office hope to do for Groveland. Groveland's local elections will be held on Monday, May 4th. Voters will be choosing several candidates, most of whom are in uncontested races. The contested races are for library trustee, with 4 candidates running for 3 3-year seats, and the Board of Selectmen, with 4 candidates running for 2 3-year seats and 1 2-year seat. There will also be a question on the ballot to reduce the percentage of the Community Preservation Act surcharge from the current 3% to 1%. I'll start by explaining how this evening will work, the procedures, which each candidate did receive ahead of time. So for the audience, if you could please silence your cell phones and other devices. This program is being taped for rebroadcast on local cable channel 9.
It's showing live.
Oh, it's showing live, thank you. And no campaign material is allowed in Town Hall. And we ask that you please treat all candidates fairly and remain quiet throughout and hold applause until after all the candidates have finished their closing statements. When it is time to ask questions of the candidates, I'll ask you to come to one of these 2 microphones and state your name and address, and then ask your question. And your question should apply to issues related to the particular office, and if it is directed at a particular candidate, I will give all of the candidates an opportunity to respond. And exit quietly if you plan to leave early. And only the press may take photos or record portions of tonight's event. So for the candidates, for the uncontested races, if you're here, you'll be introduced in the order that you appear on the printed ballot, and you'll be invited to make a 2-minute statement about your office and any related issues, and to answer a question or 2 from the audience if there are questions. I'll then call up the candidates in the contested races, and you'll be seated in alphabetical order from left to right, which is how your names appear on the ballot. The contested race candidates will have 2 minutes for an opening statement. We'll make those in alphabetical order. And then these will be followed by questions from the audience. And answers will be up to 2 minutes in length. I'll be rotating the order so that you have an equal chance of being first and last to answer. And then you'll have 2 minutes for a closing statement, and those will be given in reverse order from opening. Our timekeeper, Carol Pelchat from the Greater Haverhill League, is right here in the front. She'll, when there's a minute left on your speaking time, she'll hold up a minute card. At 30 seconds, a 30 seconds card, and then another at 15. And No 15. Oh, okay. So there'll be a minute and 30. Sorry, we didn't get that straight. And then the stop card. And I'll just ask that you please finish your sentence and wrap up when you see the stop card. So I will begin with the candidates in the uncontested races, and you can give your statement from your seat. For assessor, Gerald E. Hill. Is Mr. Hill here? Okay. Board of Health, Richard Lombard. Is Mr. Lombard with us? Okay. Cemetery Commission, Deborah A. Stewart. Very good. Okay. So you have 2 minutes, Deborah.
I'd just like to, basically, looking forward to actually trying to help get the cemetery back to a respectful level where it once was. Just needs a lot of help, and I think I can try to help get the community more involved. And I'm hoping that with being on this, my voice will definitely get out there and be heard. A lot of people know I don't have a very quiet voice, so just hoping for
Okay.
a lot of support and a lot of community. Oh, thank you. Oops.
So we'll make sure we get the microphone part.
Not that
Pardon
I
me.
needed this, but thank you. But I just want to, just hope everybody gets out and votes on Monday and look forward to serving our community.
Thank you very much. Thank you. The next candidate on the ballot is Kathleen Prunier. And Kathleen, I think you indicated you wouldn't be speaking, but if you could stand so that we know. Thank you. So she's running for Housing Authority. Thank you. Now we have one library trustee running for a 2-year term, and that is Judith A. McCann. And very good.
I'm running unopposed for a 2-year term, so this will be brief. I'm going to share something with you that only the IRS and my husband knows. On the ballot, it's going to say Judith McCann, and all my life I've used my middle name, Ann McCann. But I'm unopposed. Vote for Judith. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
I use my second name too.
So moving on to the candidate for Light Commissioner, Sean A. LaBelle was very sorry that he couldn't be here. He tried to rearrange his schedule and was unable to. Next, the gentleman running for moderator, William H. Dark. Mr. Dark isn't here. Okay. Then for school committee, Douglas A. Jelina. Is Mr. Jelina here? Okay. He did. Oh, all right. Okay. Okay. And then moving on to tree warden, Mark J. Parento. Parento? Is Mark here? Mr. Parento? Okay. Then we have the Water Sewer Commissioner, a 2-year term, Richard K. Danforth. Is Mr. Danforth with us? No? Okay. And then Water Sewer Commissioner, a 3-year term, James M. Sheehan. Mr. Sheehan, no? Okay. Well, very good. We'll now move on to the contested races, and I'll ask the candidates for library trustee to please come up to the table. And so you'll be seated left. So Elizabeth Burton, you'll be all the way over on the left. Jennifer Close next to you. Anne Marie Wilson Crockett. And Mr. J. Collins did not reply to our invitation, so he won't be with us. Okay. So then we will start. We'll begin with opening statements. And Ms. Burton, you'll go first, and you have 2 minutes.
Hi, Elizabeth Burton, and mostly I'm called Beth. This is about I think it's my third time to run. It's a 3-year term, and I want to first say thank you to the wonderful staff that we have at the library, because without them, we wouldn't even have a need for a board of trustees. So that staff is fabulous, and I appreciate them. I also want to say thank you to the other board members, because it is a 9-member board, and we've always had 9 members, so it's never been without a full seated board, and it is by group consensus and, majority vote that everything that gets done. So without all the members of the trustees, I wouldn't be able to be the chair this year. And I've been a member, chair, vice chair, and a secretary in all my years of tenure. I just love the library, and I am so happy to be part of keeping it growing and keeping it going for our children and all of our adult services and programs, and the teens too. Thanks.
Thank you. So I'll just, actually, I think we'll hold applause to the end. That would work better. Ms. Close, you're next.
Hi, good evening. I'm Jennifer Close. I'm running for my second term. As Beth said, we've had some great accomplishments this year. We've hired a new library director. We're really a great team, and we work well together. As myself, I have a second grader. We're always in the library. We just love it. It's a great place, and I'm proud to be part of the library board. I'm the current vice chair this year. And it's been an exciting year for us. So I'm looking forward to 3 more great years if I'm elected again, and look forward to working with all of you on all the different boards. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Wilson Crockett.
Hi, I'm Anne Marie Wilson Crockett, and this would be my second term if I am elected. And I got involved doing this, I think, just from going to the library. I have 3 children. I'm a huge reader and writer, and I love being at the library, being in bookstores, being around books, and had the opportunity. I was asked if I'd be interested in doing this the first time, and had the opportunity to work with some really amazing people. We now have a new director who is really exciting, I think, and it's exciting to think about working with her for the next 3 years. So I hope that you'll consider me, and thank you.
Thank you. So now we'll move on to questions, and I'd like to open it up to the audience. Does anyone have questions for the candidates? Well, yes. Valerie, yes.
Valerie Osborne, 3 Pleasant Street. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. I was just wondering, what do you ladies think is the most pressing issue at the library for the coming year or coming years? Do you want to start?
And Ms. Wilson Crockett, you'll be first.
I think because we have a new director is really building the team and what the library can be doing, and hearing her ideas and finding out what she would like to do and what she brings to the table, and supporting her. And I think she's got a lot of good ideas, and I think that that's what the board is there for, is to support her and support the staff, and see how we can make this a really great community center for Groveland.
I agree
Thank
with
you.
Anne Marie, is working with our new director, working on our 5-year plan, for the next 5 years of the library, what we hope to accomplish. We've got a lot of hopes and dreams and aspirations, and we hope that they all come true eventually. It may not be in our 3-year term, our next 3-year term, but at least set a ground for people that come beyond us, and to make something happen with the library. So.
Okay. And then Ms. Burton.
So in the 5 weeks that Amy Kramer has been our library director, she has hired the new children's librarian, and she'll be starting soon. So that was a big thing that needed to be done, and Amy got right on it and took advantage of good resumes that came in and hired her right away, and also hired another part-time library assistant. So we're at full staff and ready to go, and like everybody said, support the staff and move forward with their vision. And the long-range plan is done in October 2015, so we're needing to do the next long-range plan, which enables us to get grants to supplement the municipal budget. And so that's a really big, important component, and Amy's ready to work on that too.
Thank you. Does anyone else in the audience have questions? Well, if it's all right, I'll ask you a question. So I am curious, and actually, Ms. Close, you'll be first. So what is your vision? What are some of the components of what you would like to do for the next strategic plan for your?
Well, we would love a new library, but we know that that's some ways down the road, but we need to build our way up to getting a new library, is getting community involvement and getting the word out and getting our friends group started up again, and really just bringing the community back in to know that it is a community place, that anybody, the library is open to everybody, and there's so many different things that we can do. You know, if we don't have the book, we'll get the book for you. So it's just such a wonderful place. The staff is so great and welcoming, and we just want everyone to know that. So that's really the biggest thing, is getting the community to know that it is a community center.
Thank you. And then Ms. Wilson Crockett.
Well, I will echo those thoughts, and I think probably just add to that. I think one of the programs that they would like to work on is the teen programs, and really finding a way, as somebody who has a teenager and are about to be a teenager, ways to get those children in and engaged. They have some wonderful parent programs, adult programs, young children programs, and I think that, working with the staff and, helping them, support them with those programs.
Team. And Ms. Burton.
And I definitely support what Jen and Anne Marie said, and that's one of the reasons why we hired a youth librarian, not a children's librarian, because the teens are a group that there's plenty of things that we can do to bring them in and to give them a place that they feel comfortable and engaged, and not, with books and with literacy, but also homework and cool projects that happen. The other thing is we just, our historical documents, we got a grant for this year, and we have more support from the community preservation monies that we got voted on Monday. So we'll be doing a lot with historical preservation, starting in phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. So near-term changes, midterm, and long-term plans. So,
Thank you. So, and yes, Valerie.
One more. Sure. As a former library trustee myself, I was interested in you. I think it was one of you mentioning about a new library. Were you thinking of a new library or in addition to the current library?
We would look at both options. If we, our dreams, obviously, big dreams, we would love to see a new, bigger building. But if that wasn't in the picture, we would be very happy with an expansion. And we know that that's years to come, but it's up to us to start getting that ball rolling and get the process happening. So it's something we're excited about. We all go in the building and look around and say, oh, if that wall just wasn't there, what could we do? And we would, dreams. We'd love more meeting space. We'd love study corrals for the kids. We would love, new activities, more computers. So we'd like to grow with the town as the town's growing.
So, Ms. Burton.
And it is a step-by-step plan. And if you look at Salisbury's in the process of building their new building, and I went on their website, and it talks about, in 1995 was the first time that they talked about it. The trustees and the staff, established that it was too small. And then in 2003, we made our first applications. It's a process. So we started it last year, or the year before, and looking at how grants are done through the Mass Library Board of Commissioners, how state different things are matched by our funds and their funds, and the whole process. So we're educating ourselves.
Very good. And Ms. Wilson Crockett.
And I think the other piece of that is that it's a community project. Oh, sorry. Yep. And I think the other piece of that is that it's a community project, and that when we were talking about it as a group, one of the big pieces is getting the community in and hearing what people want and what they want. If it's an expansion, what's going to be important to the community? What does Groveland need? So respecting that.
Thank you. So if there are no other questions, oh, very good. So Valerie will pass you the microphone. And if you could just identify yourself.
Joanna Donnelly, 5 Alpha Road, Groveland, Mass. The only thing I would like to suggest is that the seniors really need an entrance a little closer to the handicap area. That long walk, if you're not up to it, is really tough.
So, and that would be Ms. Burton, you're first.
Thank you. You are so right. And it's also at a slight incline. I myself have asthma, and on bad days, I can feel that it's a slight incline, but you can feel it. And that was one of my drawings had, how can we put an entrance there and also deal with the wind. I worked at MIT, and the wind off the river and the wind off our river just goes right into it. So how would we deal with that? Because you can barely get the door open. So how could we have an entrance that down there, also right into the into the meeting room space? So thank you for sharing that, because it's nice to have it directly from somebody else.
And Ms. Wilson Crockett, you.
No, and I think that that's, speaking to what I was saying before, all of those are the things that are going to be important to hear from people, because it might not be something that somebody would necessarily think about, and to hear from people in the community, like, what is going to be important when you're coming to the library? What do you want and what do you need?
And Ms. Close.
I think that they both said it all. It's really is community involvement. We want, when it comes to that time, we will ask, what do you wish for? How would you like to see it? What would make it easier for you to use the library? So those are all the questions that we would put out there and hope that anybody that has an interest would answer.
Very good. Yes, sure. And
I'm Inez Steele, 6 Union Street, Groveland, Massachusetts. And first of all, I really value all the volunteer work that the trustees of the library do. You all work very hard. I actually have 2 questions. One is, library staff there's been a huge turnover very recently, almost a 100% turnover, and quite a few people in the same position who have left over the last few years. I'm wondering if you can address why you think that occurred and what's being put in place to create more stability for staff at the library. The other thing is that I'm wondering if you can tell us how long each of you has been a trustee at the library.
okay, so the Ms. Wilson Crockett, you'll go first.
I think speaking to turnover, I'm going to hold this up here. It's not easy when there's turnover anywhere, and I think there's different reasons for why there was turnover. There were people that were probably very unhappy, and there were people that moved on to different positions, different libraries. I would like to think that what we're hopefully going to be doing now with the new director is building on her expertise and her team building and supporting staff. I don't know that I can, I think that it's a difficult thing to speak to, because I think there's different reasons why people leave. And I don't personally know, probably all the reasons that people left. I've been, to answer the second part of your question, I've been there for 3 years. But I guess I feel like my hope is that what we're going to be doing is supporting staff going forward and the director going forward, and that, if it's anything within the library that's causing it, that hopefully we're going to set up ways for people to feel that they can talk to people if they're unhappy, if that's the reason why people left. So I hope that answers the question.
Thank you. Ms. Burton?
I'm actually a librarian, and I went to Simmons, and so I have been on the trustees. I actually have to say I'm not exactly sure. I think I've had 2 terms, so that's 6 years, so I think I'm running for my 3rd term. Is anybody? I think it's my 3rd term. So anyway, turnover, and library directors is one of the persons that has left, And it's very difficult in Massachusetts to actually have library directors because there's not a lot of people going into public libraries. It's not a money-making place. So if you've gone to Simmons and spent $20,000, $30,000 getting your master's, you're not going to recoup that money quickly in a public library director role. And if you look at across Massachusetts, everybody is looking for directors. Lots of people have retired, and the past director was a new director. So our library is at a size that people are going to be either brand new in the director role, or at the end of their career that they're more interested in the size of Groveland. So you'll see people turning over with a year. And the past library director found that she didn't really like being a director. And the one before that actually went on to more of an administrative role into the Mass Library systems. So that is a bigger job with more responsibility, a wider net. So totally appropriate, in my opinion, a growth and development and economics, too. So no, it's hard to stay in the same job for a long time, especially for salaries.
Thank you. And Ms. Close.
Again, as Beth said, we are a beginning of the career library or an end of the career library is what we found when we were interviewing people for the current director position. It is up to the trustees to recommend to the Board of Selectmen, the hire, and the Board of Selectmen to approve the hire. But we went through a long process for this current director, who's just started now, and we learned a lot. And we learned a lot about library staffing, and we learned a lot about the different positions that a library needs. And as Anne Marie said, there's a lot of things that we don't know why people left, because it's not our place to hire it's the director's role to take care of the staff that's in the library. We can, get information and, get what we can, but they are also personnel and personal issues as well. But we have a great staff now. As Beth said, we're fully staffed, and it's exciting for us to see that. I am running for my second term, so I've been on the board for 3 years currently.
Thank you. Well, I think we'll move on to closing statements, which will be done in reverse order. So, Ms. Wilson Crockett, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you. Well, I guess I just want to say,
Right.
I just want to say thank you for the opportunity to serve on the Board of Trustees. I think it's been a great learning experience the last 3 years. I've never been on a board before. Being a part of the library and working with these women has really been a wonderful, wonderful experience. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Close.
And I thank you as well. I've learned so much in the last 3 years, and hope to have another 3 years doing this. It's exciting, it's challenging, but I feel it's rewarding. I feel like I can give something back to the town that I've lived in now for 9 years, and I appreciate it. And I welcome any of you to come to our meetings. They are open for anybody to come, listen, to ask questions, be part of the process. We'd love to see you there. So thank you.
Thank you, and Ms. Burton.
That's a really good point, that the meetings are open, and I do think it takes a while to learn how. It's not a simple job. There's rules and regulations. There's training that we go to. There's conferences that for trustees. There's a Massachusetts Board of Library Commissioners that regulates the trustees. So once you're elected, you are governed, and that's helpful. And public laws. So I think it takes a while to learn how to be a trustee, and so I am just feeling like, okay, now this, now I really get it, and I'm excited about doing another 3 years if you'll vote for me. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So now I will call up the 4 candidates running for 3 seats on the Board of Selectmen. The length of their terms will be determined as follows. The two candidates who receive the most votes on Election Day will serve 2 3-year terms, and the candidate who receives the next highest number of votes will serve a 2-year term. So I would ask that Elizabeth Gorski, Daniel McDonald, Edward Watson, and Michael Wood please come up to the table. And right, so you'll be closer to me. Yes. So Ms. Gorski will be on the far left. Mr. McDonald will be next to her, Mr. Watson, and Mr. Wood. Okay. So it's clear that we need to speak into these mics. You might have to pick it up. We'll see.
Would you like a bottle of water? Is this for us?
That's for you. You have to reach for it. Okay.
Can you hear me?
So if we'll go ahead and get started, we'll have opening statements of 2 minutes each, and Ms. Gorski, you'll go first.
Hello, my name is Betty Gorski. I'm on the ballot as Elizabeth Gorski. I'm on the Board of Selectmen. I've been here.
You may need to hold the mic, I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Gee whiz, thought we bought better equipment. I've been on the Board of Selectmen for 15 years. And I'm running again this year. This is the first year we'll become a 5-member Board of Selectmen. This is history-making, I believe. I always enjoyed serving with a 3-member board, but things change, and I'll go with the change, absolutely. I've lived in Groveland all of my life. My husband died a few years ago. I have 2 children. They live in Groveland. I'm a nana. I have a little grandson, Nolan. And I've worked in government a very long time. I've served in the Massachusetts State Senate for 10 years. I've served on the Sex Offender Registry Board, Victim Service Advocate. I've served at the YWCA of Haverhill for kids that have been abused, and I've dealt with issues that women who have been battered have to deal with. I was a business owner in Haverhill. I know what it's like to make a payroll, pay all the insurances one has to pay. My husband and I did that. So I've been busy, and I love this community, and I want to be a part of it for a very long time. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. McDonald.
Hello, everybody. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Daniel MacDonald, for those of you that don't know me. I've lived in town since 2005, about 10 years. I moved here with my then triplet 1-year-olds, my wife, my dog, a couple cats. We moved here to raise a family. We chose Groveland because it's beautiful, the scenery, it's safe. It's the type of town where I could, kids could leave their bike in the driveway and it will rust before somebody will steal it. That's important to us, a safe community. The schools have a good reputation. I'd like to see them have even a better reputation. They're a little bit above the middle. I'd like to see them achieve top 10 status and percentage-wise, even though that's not the direct jurisdiction of the Board of Selectmen. It still is important, and if I get elected by the people on the Board of Selectmen, as a leader of the town, I will promote education as number one. It's somewhat of a separate issue in this town because of our school district, but I'll let you know that that's first and foremost for me. And I have a skill set that I think is unique. I'm a certified public accountant. I know numbers. I know generally accepted accounting principles. I've been self-employed for 17 years. I have a payroll. I have an office in Danvers. Also been an attorney at law. I was admitted to the bar in 2003. I have a broker's license. I'm familiar with real estate transactions, conveyancing. probate, tax issues. So I have a diverse background in business and a solid accounting background that I think the Board of Selectmen could use, and I'd like to use that to work with a new finance director and the finance committee to make sure that everything is buttoned down and that we do things right.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Mr. Watson.
I'm Ed Watson, running for the Board of Selectmen. First, I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters for having the forum. This has been terrific. I retired 9 months ago. I worked 31 years as a police officer for the city of Haverhill and worked mostly traffic and accident investigation. Prior to that, I was on the fire department in the town of Groveland for about 19 years. I was on the Board of Fire Engineers here in Groveland for 25 years. Public service has been my whole life, and I'd like to continue it. I think I can add something to the board. We're embarking on new territory from a 3-man board to a 5, and it's going to be interesting, and I'd like to be part of that. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Wood.
Hello, I'm Mike Wood. I'm back again from last year. For those of you that don't know me, a little bit about myself. I lived in Groveland for almost all of my life. I went to Bagnell, went to Pentucket, went to undergraduate school at Salem State College, got a bachelor's in criminal justice, a minor in history. From there, I went on to Arizona State, where I earned a master's degree in government educations. I spent the last 10 years working for software companies that work primarily with the federal government, which has allowed me to meet some very talented and very smart people, has granted me the ability to see some really interesting facilities, but has shown me the failures and inefficiencies of how government operates at every level. I wouldn't classify myself as a liberal or a conservative. I would rather put myself in a logical category. With that logic, I think that any issue or project in town can be justified or unjustified by being able to answer 4 simple questions. What we do today, can that be undone tomorrow if needed? Do we need it? Does it benefit the majority of the people? And can we afford it? A few areas that I would like to focus on: improvement of the town's infrastructure. After the past winter, the town's roads really took a beating. 30 seconds. Better communication, not just communication between board members and residents, but between boards. From my experience, there's been a lack of shared communication between boards, and I think that should be better to help facilitate a better government. I had a bunch of stuff to go through, but I guess I'll wait for the questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So we'll now move on to the question and answer portion. And if people in the audience have questions, they can either come to one of these microphones or a microphone will be passed to them. So does anyone have a question? Okay, there's one here. Okay, would you like Valerie to hand you the microphone? And if you could just state your name and address.
Is it already on? So, obviously it is. Kathy Castronellis, 12 Hillview Drive. I was on the board that worked diligently to bring about this transition to a 5-member Board of Selectmen. And it's really exciting to see this board coming together and to see the diversity in the people that are running for the board, because some people who are opposed to it said, we'll never get enough people to run for the board. So I'm pleased to see that we have more than enough candidates, and I bet we will see more people run in the future. So my question for all candidates that are running at this time is that some of the reasons that I researched in looking into why we should go to a 5-member board, other than just spreading out the workload and diversity, is to help it be easier for members of the Board of Selectmen to adhere to the open meeting law and adhere to the ethics laws of the state, because it is very difficult in a small town with a small board to recuse yourself or to not speak to another board member. So I would like to have each candidate just address how they will conduct themselves in a manner to uphold both of these very important laws. Thank you.
So Mr. McDonald, you'll answer this first.
All right. As far as ethics go, I mean, I'm a big believer in. I believe that The people's business should be conducted on camera, so it's on the record. If anyone's heard me on the ZBA, I'm on the Zoning Board of Appeals. I don't like to take phone calls 7 days a week. It's not that I'm customer unfriendly, but you know, I don't believe that people should be necessarily trying to influence certain decisions unless they're on camera. There's many opportunities in town that if we do have a serious issue, everyone in town has an open door policy. You can come down here and say your piece. You can express your opinions, and I believe in open disclosure, not only for the members of any board and the Board of Selectmen, but also for the people of town. Time and time again, I hear about what's heard on social media and the rumor mill, and I'm not a fan of the rumor mill. If you have something to say, you go to the source. You don't accuse people of saying things. You don't spread rumors. You go to the source and you say, did you say that? And the best way to do that on issues that pertain to town business is to come down here and fill up these chairs, because oftentimes this room is empty and people are conducting business. So I think it cuts both ways with the people of this town, that people need to get more involved, and I would like 99% of the business to be conducted in this room. Okay, so that's my opinion on that.
Thank you. Mr. Wood?
Did you skip?
No, actually, I'm skipping around.
Oh.
There is a method to my madness.
So you're going to throw some salt in the game. I agree with Mr. McDonald. I think being completely open, inviting people to come down, not doing behind closed doors sessions, off camera. I'm pretty straightforward. People that know me know that I work hard. I am constantly going. So everything that he says, I pretty much echo, but it's not that complicated, right? People complicate government, and they think that it has a certain way to flow. It's straightforward. You be open about what you're talking about. If you have a question, you come down here. You don't sit on your computer like Mr. McDonald said and shoot things off to the cyber world and stir the bucket, but not come down here and sit in the seat and talk to us face to face, whatever board that we're on. So straightforward, in the open, be independent, be ethical on what you believe in. Don't be tied to someone for some back-end deal or anything like that. Just be true to yourself.
Thank you. Mr. Watson?
Well, in the past, if you watch a lot of the selectmen's meetings in the past, there's been an awful lot of executive sessions. And things should be brought out in front of everybody. There's too many executive sessions, too many things done on the side. And in addition, we should make it a lot easier to pick up a copy of the selectmen's minutes of the meetings. They're very difficult. I haven't been able to pull up any off of the computer in a good long time. I haven't seen some of the agendas posted on a computer. It's stuff done in the background, and it needs to be out into the open so everybody in town knows what's going on. And these secret side sessions, they've got to stop. I don't have an agenda like some people in the past have had. I'm here to try to do a job, and hopefully I can be a benefit. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gorski.
Thank you. Well, sometimes executive session is necessary because we've had a lot of land transactions in the past, and there was information that you couldn't get out until the purchase was consummated. And you know, executive session, it is difficult to go into executive session. Some people go into executive session and we're all told not to discuss it anyplace else. And before you know it, there's rumors in the community about what's happening, and it didn't seem like it was the same meeting I was at. So, and Mrs. Castronellis wants to talk about ethics. And I think what would you mean by that, Kathy? What was your question about ethics?
Microphone's up there.
I'm glad to repeat it. It was just that we're in a small community, and my feeling was expanding the board to 5 members would allow the board to function more easily if someone has to recuse themselves. because we are a small community.
Exactly.
Yes. so
As
I was
we
just-
were with 3, one would have to recuse herself if it were a payroll issue.
And we would have only 2.
Because
Yes.
I assume you might have been talking about ethics related to me.
No, I was not
Okay,
making this a
because
personal attack.
ethics doesn't define me. My
Excuse-
15 years of service,
Just a minute. So, no, I think she's just explaining, just let her, yeah.
my 15 years of service has proven to this town where I am and what I care about and how I conduct myself.
Thank you. So, are there any other questions, or one more
for
question?
you, please. I mean,
Sure.
I asked a question, and then
Yes.
she asked me to explain it.
Yes, and you did.
And then my question was, so how will you conduct yourself to uphold the ethics laws? That
Right.
question didn't get answered, but thank you.
Would you like me to?
Well, actually, we can go around and
Okay.
and ask that question. Sure. So we'll consider this question too, and Mr. Watson, you'll go first.
We need to follow the law. Very simple. The laws are written. Everybody that's appointed or elected to office in the town of Groveland has a copy of the open meeting law. And if you follow it to the letter, you won't have any problem with ethics.
Thank you. And Ms. Gorski, you're next.
Thank you. I think, as I said, my reputation for all these years has shown that I'm very fair. Even people that disagree with me, I can talk with, try to find a solution to a problem. I'm a professional. If you've read any of the literature about me and what I've stood for, what I've done to help people, my 10 years in the Massachusetts State Senate, my many years with children at risk and battered women. I was an advocate for victims of sex abuse. I served on the Sex Offender Registry Board. And adhering to ethics laws and adhering to open meeting laws, I do that. Sometimes people might call you to lobby for something, and you have to hang up the phone. I'm sorry, I can't talk to you about that. So there are a lot of people that try to pull you in, and you have to be strong. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Wood.
I'll keep mine pretty short. It's either a personal decision. You choose to follow the rules and be ethical, or you don't. In my line of work, I go to some very sensitive areas, and sometimes I'm held not to talk about it, right? Either an NDA or something like that. So, and knowing Mr. McDonald and Mr.
Watson.
Mr. Watson's background, I mean, they fall into the same kind of category. So it's a personal issue, and you choose to follow it or you don't.
And Mr. McDonald. Thank you.
I believe in playing by the rules. You know, I'm held to all kinds of higher standards. As an attorney, haven't been sanctioned, haven't been admonished. I don't plan to be. I need my license to make a living. I don't play games with my livelihood. I'd rather quit than lose my license. So I got a lot at stake, and I take that seriously. So, you know, I got 3 professional licenses. I used to have a securities license, insurance license. I spread myself too thin. So I'm pretty good at following regulations. They can be tricky, though, and every now and then I get caught in a conflict situation. There's help out there. I've called the BBO hotline and asked their opinion on some ethical issues. I've called some professors. So there's guidance out there. The best thing to do is ask the question before you act instead of have to beg for forgiveness after the fact. So I'm very cautious. Yeah, that's how I proceeded in my daily life, because I don't want to go backwards, and I certainly don't want to hurt anybody.
Thank you. So, yes, okay. So if you can either...
Hi, Inez Steele, 6 Union Street again. I have a question that I asked last year, and I think it brought out a lot of very interesting points, so I'd like to ask it again this year. Can you talk about 2 or 3 things, each of you, that, one, you think that Groveland is doing exceptionally well, and then on the other side, the 2 or 3 things that you really feel that need attention, that you would like to see changed or improved?
Good question. So, Mr. Wood, you'll go first.
As far as things that are going well, I'll echo what I said last year with the improvements over at Pentucket and the school district as a whole. I think Dr. Mulqueen has done a great job and continues to improve where Pentucket was, or the Pentucket School District was a few years ago, to where it is now. I think another positive is some of the open spaces that have come out with the Pines and some of the other projects that have come out for rail trails or the downtown area being cleaned up and actually giving people a place to go and meet and compete and feel safe about where they're playing with their kids. So I think that's a positive. Some things that I think need to be addressed or fixed. I mentioned the infrastructure. I don't know if you have a road in your particular neighborhood that doesn't have a pothole, but I have not seen one in a long time. It's not a knock on the highway department. I mean, this winter was brutal, right? So that's something that I think needs improvement. I think the communication, again, that needs to be improved. And I also think that some of the way that the finances are done for the town, based on an all or nothing for operations budget, needs to be changed. Maybe segment those out a little bit so you can actually vote on the merit of each line item or each group of line items, as opposed to an all or nothing.
Thank you. Ms. Gorski.
Thank you. Well, I think there's so many things great about Groveland. I was happy to be a part of the Pines Recreation Area. That started when I served with Don Graney and Bill Dark. The Groveland Bridge, which was a very long time coming. Many of us were in Boston for maybe 10 years trying to put that all together, so it flowed beautifully from Elm Park across the beautiful Groveland Bates Bridge, Veterans Bridge it's now called. The Bagnell School project was outstanding. A group of people in our community gathered together, and we were able to do that without breaking the budget here in Groveland. They all worked together. They all came from different backgrounds. It's a joy to go there. The kids love it. One thing that Mr. Wood just mentioned was the infrastructure. Years ago, we had a program called the Road Study Commission, where we made a plan that every few years we would take care of a certain number of roads. And that worked great for a while. Everybody voted for the money. Bob Arakalian did it with his crew. But as we got to the end of the project, those people that had been waiting many years, people forgot to vote the money for them. So we need to bring that back and maybe improve upon the way we did that. And with Mr. Arakalian and so many good people in town and the larger board, I'm sure that's something we can address.
Thank you. Mr. Watson.
Well, to start off with the negative, the town of Groveland needs to become more business-friendly. Right now, taxes are on the rise. If they keep going up, nobody's going to be able to afford to live here. We can't make it difficult for businesses to operate. Not all businesses are bad. I use a scenario that you don't see a school bus stop in front of Chesterton on Salem Street. You don't see a school bus stop at the industrial park up on Route 97 out near the Georgetown line. It's a win-win situation for the town with the businesses. We get the taxes, we get their real estate taxes, we get their excise taxes, we get their personal property taxes. Recently, there was up on Route 97, there was a business that moved out to Salisbury. We lost at least $21,000 in excise taxes on their equipment. We lost their personal property taxes. I have no idea what those were. We should be making it easier for some of these businesses, the regulations, to get them started. We should be working to keep them here and bring them in here. Most cities and towns welcome a business, and for some reason the town of Groveland they're anti-business. Right now, there are very few students that graduate from the local high schools that can afford to buy a house in the town of Groveland. And we need the the taxes from the businesses to help the homeowners. A positive thing for the town has been the recreation facilities, second to none. There aren't very many cities or towns around here that have recreation facilities like the town of Groveland, and the other cities and towns, they're not as well kept as they are here in the town of Groveland. Absolutely fabulous. And you hear that when you're elsewhere. A lot of them, when some of these kids come in from out of town, they love to play here because the fields are maintained well. It's a pleasure, and the town has done the right thing for recreation. Thank you.
Thank you. So,
My turn.
oh yes, I apologize. Oh my goodness,
What
you're
about
keeping
me?
me honest.
How could you
Wait,
forget?
I thought, wait, Wood, McDonald, Gorski, Watson.
You skipped me.
I did?
I'm invisible.
I get a, that's terrible.
You have bias against
I
me?
apologize.
He gets an extra
Please.
minute.
You get 3 minutes penalty.
There you go. So,
The
Mr.
good, the bad, and the
McDonald.
ugly. The good is it's a beautiful town. They call it Groveland. It has a lot of trees, and it's beautiful, and would like to maintain the character of the town. I consider myself an environmentalist, but I do not consider myself environmental, okay? There has to be a balance. Extremism in either direction, far left or far right, is very dangerous. We need to think about what we're doing, okay? Too much of anything can make you sick. All right, like eating lobster, but if I eat 10 of them, I'm not going to be healthy. So you need to manage your own appetite in this town for buying things. We have a debt culture in America. It needs to reel itself in at the local level, the state level, and at the federal level. It's too easy with the low interest rates to just say finance everything. Come on, people, we got to be disciplined. Do you need it, or do you just want it because you want to collect things? So I urge people in town to pick some priorities, have some discipline, and choose some things that are most important to you. Most important to me, okay, is my kids' education. I'd like to see the town spend some money on dedicated math teachers in every grade in the Bagnell Elementary School. It's a great school, but we have inclusion classes and kids are taught at multiple levels. I'd like to see breakaway time during the day so that you can teach math to the various levels. We don't have that in this town, and I think our schools are deficient in that, and I'm in Dr. Mulqueen's ear. As a Board of Selectmen, I want to look at the big picture, not just our little. We're fragmented in this town, and there's good and bad that goes with that. It's somewhat, you know, the left hand doesn't know what the right hand's doing. So we need a Board of Selectmen to talk to everyone and kind of reel it all in a central location and keep an eye on the big picture. And the big picture is we want to maintain the community with the highest level of schools, maintains property values. It's good for everyone. So that's what I want to do.
Thank you. And again, I apologize.
That's all right.
Thank you for keeping me honest here. So, yes, we have a question here, and then another. Yes, it looks like we have a few. Wonderful.
John Osborne, 3 Pleasant Street. At town meeting on Monday, I was concerned about the omnibus article. I do realize that the Finance Board does very hard work to glean the excesses out of the budget. However, there was a period where my dear wife, as moderator, had a series of holds on the procedures. But at the end of the whole procedure, there was this up or down vote. I did feel that the omnibus needs to be restructured so that at least the school portion, which is 2/3 of the budget, should be separated out of the omnibus so we could have a general discussion about that. But I do think other parts of the omnibus which are of major import, need to be stripped out of this, how can I put it, one size fits all. We are going to pass it up or down one way or the other. I'd like to have your thoughts on that matter. Thank you.
So, Ms. Gorski, you're first.
Yes, John, it was interesting when we were going through it and people, maybe there were 7 holds. Then when we revisited the holds, no one had an opinion on why they wanted that set aside. So I agree with you. We have to do something different in the future. And the Finance Committee, you know, takes a lot of heat, but it is their budget. and they realize that taxes are rocketing, and a big part of our budget is for the schools. 3 schools, in fact: Whittier, Pentucket, and Essex Aggie, which now has a new name, North something. I forget what it is, Bill, but North Shore Tech, exactly. So, and most of our budget does go to the schools, and then we're left with a small amount to run the rest of the community. So I don't know, and maybe I can get you on that committee to figure out how we can do that better in the future, since, because I know you're a busy guy. And thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Watson.
John, I was at the town meeting, and I was amazed myself on the area when somebody asked for a hold. They got an explanation. I was surprised that nobody asked to amend it to what they felt. For some reason, that was never done on any of them. There could have been a couple of reasons for that. They could have agreed with the explanation that was given by the selectmen and the finance board, or for some reason, they just never thought of it. But you're right. In past town meetings, there has been, the way it was done is they did a hold, and then you had to vote on that hold prior to continuing, and that was not done. And at that point, somebody could have made an amendment to lower it. I don't think they can raise it, but they could have lowered it, but nobody did. That's perhaps something that should be looked at in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. McDonald.
Okay. As far as town meeting goes, I mean, I think it has its pros and cons, but it structurally needs to change. I would like to see a separate night for maybe debate night, and then you go in on a separate night a week later after everyone has all of the information. What happens is you got 80 people in the room, and some of them are there for one warrant and one warrant only. And when they get their warrant and they get their prize, they get up and walk out of the room, and that happened this year and last year. I think it's rude. I think it's selfish. That's not what a town's about. So, you know, you get this push-pull going on at the town meetings, and I think there's an undertow of, hey, let's just move this along. I have no interest in this. So, you know, I'm an accountant. I'll sit here and talk all week about numbers. I mean, I'll get into minutia with you, and I like it. Most people are bored to death over that, and this is like, you know, hey, it's 9 o'clock, can I go? So I don't like that. So structurally, could something be done so that we can debate issues at a separate meeting, air them all week, so the other people that couldn't get home from work, couldn't make the meeting, can be informed about it? I'd like to see more things put on the town ballot. The warrant system's a flawed system. You got 4,000 voters in town, you got 180. Do the math on that. You got what, less than 5% of the people that's spending millions of dollars in this town? That's not democracy, okay? I'm answering, thank you. I think it's archaic. It worked when we had farmers in town and everybody could show up. Right now, people are busy, and we need more absentee votes. We need a higher percentage than 25% of the people going to the polls. Okay, that's the flaw in the system. Right now, we got a system, it's mob rule and run by special interest. You get 50 people, you can walk in and out of town meeting and walk out with $500,000. All you need is 10 signatures to get on a warrant. Does anybody know that? The Board of Selectmen can't stop you. You fill out the warrant, you get it on there, and you walk in there with your 50 people, you get the cash and leave.
Thank you.
That's a problem.
Mr. Wood.
So I agree that there are some procedural problems with the way the town meetings are operated. The holds end up lengthening the town meetings. I mean, they end up being 4 or 5 hours long, and then, to Ms. McDonald's point, people do get what they want, and then they end up leaving because that's really what their priority is. I think that the budget needs to be broken down, like I mentioned before. Really look at individual groups as opposed to just an all or nothing. But there's definitely some room for improvement, and then there's also room for improvement from the people of town representing the town and not just their own interest. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Race has a question.
Peter Race, 3 Nichols Way. Just as an aside, on the previous question, the town where my wife and I came from has 3 nights of town meetings in a row. So it can go from a 3-hour session
To
to
3 days.
accomplish the town's business to something a heck of a lot longer. My question has to do with the CPA, the Community Preservation Act. And I would like each candidate's position on the question of lowering the rate from 3% to 1%.
So, Mr. McDonald, you'll answer this first.
I was hoping I would. Here's the deal. I'm for conservation preservation. It's a CPA tax, but not to be confused with certified public accountant, which is what I am, okay? I'm a conservative, all right? I'm not a tax and spend type of guy. You spend what you can afford. Now, we want to preserve historical records. We want to preserve our community, and those things are good. So, in theory, I support the CPA levy because it helps facilitate paying for those things. But this town purchased Center Street for $3.6 million plus, and all right, and instead of bonding it through CPA taxes, they went with a debt exclusion. Okay, so effectively, this town's paying twice for community preservation, okay? You're gonna have a debt exclusion separate line item on your next tax bill, okay? It didn't come out before the elections, folks, okay? It's coming up, all right? $350,000 for debt service was on the omnibus. Didn't even have a label next to it. I raised my hand and said, hey, can you put a label on that? I knew what it was, all right? But you know what? It's almost $1,000 a day for that. CPA should rebond that. Okay, if you want to separate that property, subdivide it so there's an industrial portion, which I think is important to raise some revenue for the town. But you want to protect the aquifer, absolutely. The open space, turtle land, absolutely. Separate that property, rebond it through CPA. If you don't do that, we shouldn't have to be double taxed to preserve space in this town, and that's effectively what they've done. They want to spend twice. They spent the money through a debt exclusion, and now they want to use the other money. The other thing, there was almost $2 million in there, $1.7 million. You could have paid down that debt, $3.6 million that you borrowed. You could have dropped that another $1.7 million, so this town could have borrowed only $2 million. That wasn't offered. The leadership in this town didn't give us any information on that. That was all done executive session, and you know what? They give you a canned product, debt exclusion, went to the ballot, didn't even have a dollar number on the debt exclusion, okay? Lack of information. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Wood.
I think your question was, do you oppose or approve the CPA tax?
I approve of reducing it,
No,
by the way.
actually,
The reduction of it.
is right. Right, the ballot question.
Yes and no. So, I know that's a political answer, and I'm not trying to be like that. I agree with the CPA in the numbers portion of it, right? Because you're putting in 3%, and the state's kicking in, I think, 18%, right? Is the state kicking in 18% of the? What was that?
31%.
31%. 80. All right, so the
Yes,
the
we
state's
will be
kicking in
having a
something,
discussion.
right? So you can argue what the money's being put towards, but I don't think you can argue the funds coming in from the state and what we could use them towards. So if we can lower the tax and still maintain the open spaces and apply those funds to other resources, then yes, I'm in favor of it. If that's not an option legally or what the CPA set up to do, then no, I'm not in favor of it.
Thank you. Mr. Watson.
CPA has been a big help to the town of Groveland. But what we need to do, we need to slow down. We've got too many projects that are already started. We need to finish up some of these projects before we embark on 6 or 7 different other areas. Just one, for instance, the Shanahan, bathrooms at the Shanahan School, Shanahan Field. Most contractors could build a house in less time than it's taken to put 2 bathrooms at the school. At the field.
Thank you. Okay, I'll just let him finish.
We still, right out back here, the restoration of the room where the veto is. What's taken so long? Washington Hall, a fantastic project up there. It's still not finished. They need money. I think the last I heard, they need $30,000. Well, they're looking for donations. The last I heard. Let's finish the project. Let's take this from the CPA money and finish the building up there. Before we've got an awful lot of other things that we got going on with CPA, but finish up what we've got started. Also, on open space. Open space is great, but every piece of property that you buy up, it comes off the tax rolls. All the open space that the town of Groveland has purchased, it goes from a tax-paying piece of property to non-paying property. And we need to look a little bit smarter as far as some of that goes. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Gorski.
Thank you. The CPA question will be debated, I believe, after we finish. And CPA is a tax. It's 3% on your tax bill. The first $100,000 is exempt. When it first came to be, we were getting 100% in the match. Now it's dropped down to 60% of the match. Next year, it's dropping down to 18%. That's scary. We have so much out there, and we don't know if the Commonwealth of Massachusetts and the new governor is going to run into some unforeseen problem that maybe the match will go away altogether. We have far too many projects going on. I was surprised how many they put before us this year. I asked that. Everybody that put a project forward, I believe they all were approved by that committee. And it was overwhelming. We talk about trails. I mean, Groveland, there are trails everywhere. Now we're going to have this community trail. Well, it's great as long as the money's there. And when the money goes away and we're 3/4 into it, and now we say we need a bridge to go between Groveland and Haverhill, and the bridge has to accommodate heavy-duty trucks, are they going to come back to all of you, our children, our grandchildren, and ask them to pay for it? I want affordable taxes. I want to take care of this community. There's just far too much on our plate right now. And I think that's what our Finance Committee wanted to say. Slow down, take it easy, take a breath. We have a lot in this town to be grateful and happy with. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. So I think one more question, or, well, actually, it looks, no, there are a few of you, so we'll go ahead. Okay, so how about you? So you'll just need to press that button. There you go, and it'll turn green. There you go.
Lisa Dubé, 2 Merrimack River Road. My question is, I've lived here for approximately 11 years, and one of the observations that I've made is the various committees and groups seeing how people who are either audience members or people coming into the town are treated. I see a lot of lack of professionalism. I see rudeness and disrespect, and I'd like to hear from each of you what your thoughts are about how people need to be treated when they're having interactions and conducting business with the town.
Thank you. Mr. Watson, this will go to you first.
I'm really surprised. I'm really surprised to hear that. As far as, and are you talking about boards that disrespectful?
But I'm just talking across the board in a lot of different areas.
Gee, I'm shocked to hear that. It's amazing to me. I've never heard any. I've been in town all my life, and I've never heard any complaint about any of the boards in town or any of the employees. But maybe that needs to be addressed somehow. Hopefully you're the only one that's made a complaint like that. But yeah, no. Well, then we have some work to do. Now, thank you for bringing that forward.
Thank you, Ms. Gorski.
Thank you, Lisa, for bringing that up. I've watched meetings where people could have been treated a lot better. Some that attend those meetings and their behavior is out of control at times. And sometimes our boards need to take a step back and listen more. Last week I signed a document, and it was called the Code of Conduct for Employees and for Visitors to Town Hall. And I was happy to do that. And everybody should feel welcome when they come here. There's no question that they can ask. That's sometimes people say, maybe I'm not that articulate, somebody else is, but everybody's opinion and question is important, everybody's. and they live here, they pay their taxes, they should be heard and listened to, and hopefully find a solution to what might be troubling them. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Wood.
I think I have an idea of maybe something that you're referencing. I think it just comes back to professional mannerism and respect for people. I know that in some cases that things that linger on, people get frustrated, and that does present itself. But I think it just comes back to the way you conduct yourself, like we talked about before. But I hadn't heard. I've heard a couple complaints, but I haven't heard a lot. Are you talking that there's multiple complaints about that kind of thing? And I'd be interested to hear some of the things that I might be missing on that.
Okay. And Mr. McDonald.
I think we should all be civil. I do welcome debate. I like to argue. I think it's healthy, an exchange of ideas. You know, you don't want to cross the line. You know, I try to attack issues, not people. But sometimes when you attack issues, the person that's on the other side takes it personally, and it kind of escalates into a situation where there's animosity. So we all need to advance our arguments, and there's kind of a catch-22 on that. How far do you go to be zealous and push your agenda? And I think it's healthy. I mean, I could take it. You know, I'm on the zoning board of appeals, and you know, if you're going to get denied a permit, it's frustrating. You know, if you don't have the legal requirements, it's frustrating. And so you know, people can get upset. I mean, I could take a certain amount of it. People need to be civil as long as they're not insulting me or anyone else. I could take people raising their voices a little bit. The chairman needs to do a pretty good job of reeling people if things get out of hand. I think people do that, but there's occasional issues where, you know, someone's asked to leave, and I think those times get circulated around town and maybe blown out of proportion. But we all need to, you know, like Rodney King said, well, why can't we all just get along, you know? We need to get along. So I try to get along, but we need to, I don't want to stifle democracy. I think it's important to argue. You know, I'm trained as an attorney, and it's an adversarial system. You get up and you argue and attack and pick apart the other side's arguments and try to poke holes in the boat, whether the hole's in the front of the boat or the back of the boat, it doesn't matter, you'll sink it. So, yeah, I think that's healthy, and, but we need to keep it civil and not attack people. So I'm conscious of that, and, you know, I'm not without sin. Sometimes I go too far, I gotta reel myself in. I think people, maybe we need a rule, you hand it out, and, you know, be on your best behavior, try to be professional, and try to be respectful of people when you come into town hall. I think that's what's needed.
Thank you. So we did, yes. Yes. So could someone hand Mr. Dempsey the microphone?
Mike Dempsey, 33 Uptack Road. Heard a lot about your ideas, but what I'd like to hear is maybe you tell us how you would work to bring more business to Groveland. Maybe you can list 3 things that you would do personally to bring more business to Groveland.
Thank you. And this will go to Mr. McDonald first.
I'm a sole practitioner. I've been in business 17 years. I understand businesses. It's my bread and butter. Those are the people I serve. What businesses want is limited government. They don't want $650 fees to apply for special permits in town when you could go to another town and they charge you $0. Okay, we have a zoning bylaws that's antiquated. In my opinion, it does not comply with state law in terms of special permitting. Each business district does not have a permitted by right business use. Okay, that violates the Skit case, if you want to look that up. It's a Braintree case. It does not comply with Chapter 40A. So we need an overhaul of the zoning bylaws with permitted businesses, because when you buy a piece of property as a property owner, you have a bundle of rights that are attached to that. And it shouldn't be guesswork when you invest in Groveland or your property, whether or not you can have a hair salon or an accounting firm or a pizza place on that property. You should know that ahead of time, and it should be defined within the zoning bylaws as to what is permitted within each zoning district. So first and foremost, revise the zoning bylaws. Absolutely, it has to be done. You're going to be forced to do it. The other thing is we need to minimize regulations and speed up the permitting process. I mean, it really is the slow boat to China between going through the ZBA, conservation, and planning. So I'd like to have the permitting process. If you have a licensed site professional sign off on due diligence that you've complied with environmental regulations and Wetland Protection Act, it shouldn't get hung up in conservation for months on end. You have a professional licensed person signing off on it. Ought to be a fast track on that. Same thing with planning board. If you've got a professional engineer, PE, signing off on your plans that you've met legal requirements within that zone, within that, and you've met building requirements under state law, we need a fast track on permitting. So those two things,
Thank you.
okay.
Mr. Watson.
Lowering some of the permit fees. As Mr. McDonald said, some of the towns have a lot lower fee than what we have here in the town of Groveland. That would be a help. We also, here in the town of Groveland, sometimes when they go through the different boards, a business owner, things change in midstream and heading off in a different direction. And perhaps what we need is something almost like a permit ombudsman, which would help the person through the permit process. And so he knows a checklist. This has to be done right down the line, and somebody to help them through this process. And also, some of these businesses, especially if you get a large business, they're going to help the town with infrastructure. They can update antiquated traffic intersections. They can, if they're in the right spot, they could help with our water and sewer system. We need to be more friendly towards businesses, and we haven't been. Most of the boards in town are not friendly. You just had an ice cream shop that opened up on Salem Street. The poor guy up there, to open up an ice cream shop, it cost him a fortune just in a septic system for an ice cream shop. And that seems to be totally absurd. And it's across the board. We need to make it easier. Thank you.
Thank you. And Ms. Gorski.
Thank you. Well, I think Ed and Dan said exactly how I feel. We need to be business friendly. We need to embrace people that want to come into this town and open a business. We shouldn't make it as difficult. I've heard people from Haverhill say, Betty, it's so hard to get anything done in your town. What's the reason? And I can't give him an answer. I know my colleague, Bill Dunn, is serving on a committee to streamline the permitting process. He's met with several people from Merrimack Regional Planning, Dennis DiZoglio's group. Maybe we need a part-time planner, so people, when they come to Town Hall, can get the answers they need and not have to wait to come back till next Monday night or next Thursday night. Again, I think Ed said, big business supplies a lot of amenities to us. Sewer lines that we can't afford to do. Some people in town have sewer, the rest of us have septic systems. You know what it's like to have a septic system. At any given time, you can run into tremendous problems which will cost you thousands and thousands of dollars. So I would like to see us be more friendly towards business people. And the other night, we had an article on that got tabled, and the one part of that article was huge numbers that one would have to pay if they wanted to take on a project or if something had gone wrong. We just need to be more helpful to people. The single tax rate in Groveland is the same for business as it is for residential. That should be a drawing card for us. We should work towards doing that, going out. Maybe we need a business association. We need to get the word out. Groveland welcomes business, whether it's big business, or the little mom and pop shop, or somebody that wants to do business out of his or her home. Thank you.
So,
Do I get to answer that?
oh, wait a minute. Mr. Wood, okay. My
You're not alone,
apologies.
Dan.
I know. I'm an equal
visible.
opportunity,
You're up next.
yeah. Sorry, Mr. Wood.
So I would agree with the smaller fees. I think that that'll help, if nothing else with the process, but at least get people involved with wanting to come to Groveland. I'm not so sure about hiring another government employee to do that process. I think you could probably do that with just a basic application packet that shows them from start to finish the process and the boards that they're going to meet with, so they know ahead of time that they're not going to be jumping around all the time. They're going to have a smooth process of start at A, end at Z, and that's what the process is going to be. Maybe we go as far as offering them a tax break, right? Maybe they come to town, they get a smaller tax fee, or maybe they get a tax break for hiring local kids in the town. You know, there's some options out there. It's just how far do you want to go to get the business in town, and what kind of business is it going to be?
Thank you, and I apologize.
Okay.
Thank you for keeping me honest here. I'm really not trying to exclude anyone. So we do have time for one or two more questions. So if someone could pass this young woman the microphone.
Michelle O'Keefe, 15 Benham Street, Groveland. Not sure how many of you guys read the audit report that came out a couple months ago. Partner from Powers and Sullivan came down and talked to the Board of Selectmen about their findings. I was just wondering what your thoughts were on the findings. There was 4 material weaknesses that were found, how it's going to be corrected, and making sure that going forward these issues will not come up again.
Thank you. Mr. Watson?
Well, I heard most of that. I don't think there was any malicious intent on any part of any of the different groups in town. Sometimes in the past, it became easier for different organizations to have their own checking account. Sometimes it took 2 to 3 months to get a check out of town hall, so they felt that it was faster, maybe even cheaper to do it on their own. As an example, if you're hiring a vendor, if you have employees, you have to pay your employees every week. And if you're not getting a check out of the town of Groveland for 2 to 3 months, which it took in the past, you have to borrow money to make your payroll. And consequently, knowing that, they have to raise their fee. They have to raise their price. So it costs more. So some of these groups, they were able to do it. They were able to go out. They were able to solicit their own bids and pay the check, probably get it done even cheaper. But now that the audit come out and it was wrong, we're going to have to follow the law. And I'm sure that we're going to get that done, and it'll be corrected. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Wood?
So I did not read the full report, but I had heard some of the items that were engaged in it. I don't think there was any criminal intent for the people who went outside the normal established process. I think they were just trying to get things done, whether it was from a side account or from funds for the town. So on the one side, I think they did a good job. It's just, I work with government all the time, right? And there's a backlog of efficiencies of getting stuff done. So I think from that aspect, it was just, hey, we need to get this done. We have the money over here. Let's spend it. From a legal standpoint and a process standpoint, probably wasn't the right thing to do. I'm sure that will be corrected once this report is actually analyzed by everybody. But I think that once that goes through that process, and then we can find a way to actually keep that process simple and smooth, but also follow the letter of the law, I think that that'll be a good thing.
Thank you. Ms. Gorski?
Thank you. I did see that audit report, as several of you did. I don't think that anybody tried to do anything that was illegal or wrong. The focus, different finance directors, different philosophies, and those things have been corrected. We have to go and run our town with Massachusetts general laws. If you don't, you can get yourself in hot water. Procurement and bidding process has to be followed. As some people know, they've been waiting for projects to be completed, and you just can't, some people thought, well, maybe a project has been approved, that they could go ahead and manage it. That's not the case, and that's where we run into trouble. I think Denise Domkowski, I'm sorry, Denise, if you're listening. She's doing an excellent job. She's a very smart woman, and I support her 1,000%, and I think things will move slowly or quickly, and it'll happen. That report will be very different the next time we see it.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. McDonald.
I read the report. I have a copy of it here. What needs to be done is just basic accounting, generally accepted accounting principles. What the report found was that some accounts weren't reconciled. They weren't, turned into the town accountant as required. So, it's a reporting function that needs to be followed strictly. The people of Groveland need to know that their hard-earned money is accounted for each and every day, each and every month. If I'm on the Board of Selectmen, I'm a CPA, I think I bring that skill set. I certainly would work with the finance director and the finance committee to make sure that things don't slip through the cracks. The revolving accounts, we had a town meeting the other day, and some warrants and revolving accounts were renewed, such as I think $90,000 for the, was it conservation? So, I mean, each year at town meeting, and Mr. Wakefield, chairman of ZBA, he got up and he read the accounting for the year, and he read off the receipts and the disbursements, the expenditures. Some of the other committees didn't do that. So unless I missed them, and it didn't happen. So if state law says you need to turn in your receipts and your accounting records monthly to the town accountant, that's mandatory. That's not an optional. It's not may. It's shall. You must. So I take those things seriously. If I blow a deadline, I know what that's like. You get in trouble, I don't want to go see the accounting board, the board of bar overseas. I don't want to go talk to anyone. So you know what? You do things right, you stay out of trouble. You cut corners, you go in circles. You skip steps, you fall down stairs. Okay? So this town needs to pick up the ball, not drop it, and to follow generally accepted accounting principles, GAP. And if they don't know how to do that, you have continuing education, and the town should fund that and get people up to speed on these things.
Thank you. So I think we have time for one more question. So the mic is there. Sure.
I did it. Kathy Casternalis, 12 Hillview. Just a quick follow-up question on Michelle's question. Being a little bit of a math geek, I'm a math teacher, former finance committee member. When I heard about this audit report, I came down to hear it presented, and then I went back and looked at the last 4 years and saw similar findings. And I'd like to know from each candidate one way they could bring their expertise to the Board of Selectmen meetings to help make sure that we do address the uncollected back taxes, the accounts that are not being reconciled, and each and every material weakness. These are not small things, and they're a history of 4 years of this. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Wood, you'll be first.
I guess, are you talking about people who haven't paid their taxes on cars and houses in the last X amount of years?
I'm just saying, this is just in the audit.
In the audit report? Obviously, that's an issue. I mean, everybody has their obligation to pay taxes and road tax, car tax, whatever it is, to the town if they intend to live here. Right? I mean, I pay my taxes. I run my house on an operating budget. So if I'm spending more than I'm taking in, then I'm in trouble, right? Same thing with the town. So I think we just need to be a little bit more stringent on the people who have not paid their taxes. And then I don't even know if levying a fine would do any justice to it if they're not paying their initial tax. So I don't know. I don't know how to go about changing that. I mean, I'd be open up to some ideas to take in as a consultant, because there's got to be a way to either force them to pay or do some kind of property lien or something like that.
Thank you. Mr. McDonald.
My background, again, I'm a CPA. I know the tax law and pay my taxes. I'm also an attorney. I have the accounting report. I went through it. The town should collect taxes, and they haven't for a period of time. We have a omnibus budget, and it would be nice if we could see uncollected taxes on there. I don't even know how much it is. Does anyone in town know if there's a $500,000 owed? If, you know, if there was $750,000 owed, we'd get a new fire truck, and it wouldn't cost us any more money. So let's get the deadbeat taxpayers to pay their taxes, and what the attorneys need to do for the town is to record the tax takings and to go to land court and foreclose if necessary. Certainly, you want to be reasonable with people if they're unemployed or they, you know, lost their job or they're disabled. There might be some mitigating reasons why somebody fell behind on their taxes, and I believe in being reasonable. But if something goes years and years and years, you know, push come to shove, you got to go collect the taxes. You know, that's what I would do on the Board of Selectmen. I would talk with town council or urge the Board of Selectmen to pursue some of these seriously delinquent tax accounts, and certainly urge the finance director to account for them. They should be on the piece of paper at town meeting. People should know. And most towns publish it in the newspaper who hasn't paid their back taxes, you know? I don't want to snitch on everybody, you know, but you know what? If you haven't paid your taxes in 5 years, you know, you shouldn't be on the Board of Selectmen. You shouldn't be on any committees in town, you know. You should pay your bills. So we should know who they are, and we should make them pay. And they should pay interest at the statutory interest rate. And if they don't pay, you take them to foreclosure and you sell their house. I mean, that's where the cookie crumbles. You pay or you don't stay.
Thank you. Mr. Watson.
Well, first of all, we need a dollar figure of what is owed. We need to be more diligent in our collections. Some of the other cities and towns, what they've done is they've offered a moratorium or waived any penalties and interest, and that's brought in tax money. Try that. If that doesn't fail, then start the process to foreclose on the property. Everybody's got to pay their taxes, and Mr. McDonald is right. We need an accounting on how much is actually owed, and start the process. Maybe the moratorium or a waiving of the fees, give them a time to pay up, and then start the process to foreclose. Thank you.
Thank you. And Ms. Gorski.
Thank you. Well, you'll all be happy to know that we are moving ahead and doing that. Denise, our new finance director, has a plan. She's compiled a list. People will know that we're going to be publishing names. We're not going to be heartless. If somebody's fallen on hard times, hopefully we can work with them, but we have probably $450,000 owed to the town in back real estate taxes. So if we had that money, we'd be looking a lot better than we do right now. So there is a plan in place, and we will be moving ahead with that very quickly.
Thank you. So I want to thank the audience. We do have a, okay, you convinced me.
I would like to ask each of the members up running for the...
And could you state your name?
William Dunn, 10 Garrison Street, Groveland. I would like to ask if each one of you would make a commitment, and if you would, you've all talked about business tonight and how Groveland needs business. Would each and any one of you make a commitment in any part of Groveland to ask or put a business building plan together, take the busing property? Would any of you sit there and say, yeah, I would be committed to using a parcel of that piece of land to put business in, to offset the debt that's over there, to bring our debt down, and to help bring revenue into the town? As someone stated earlier, we don't have buses pulling up in front of that property. We're gonna turn it into money for the town of Groveland. Or any other part of Groveland. Could anyone tell me where you might think of or what you might do? Thank you.
Okay. So I messed myself up here with my order. So I will say, Mr. Watson, you go first.
It's a great question. I remember when, way back several years ago, the town of Groveland ran a water main down Center Street in front of the busing property. And the idea of running that water main, I forget now whether it was a 10 or 12-inch main, was to raise the property values, make it more attractive for businesses. Nobody ever moved in there. And now the town took the property, and I would definitely be in favor of some small business, light industry, light business, to move down there onto part of the busing property. Not the whole thing, but on some of it. You're absolutely right. And I'm sure, looking back, there's other areas in the town that we can put industry or businesses. Maybe we need to rezone some of the land to make it a business zone. That would be a start. But the busing property, an excellent idea, and that was originally why they ran that water line down there, was to put business in there. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. McDonald.
As I said earlier, I mean, I do recommend subdividing that Center Street property, protect the aquifer where the recharge area is, protect turtle and the endangered species. Those are important things. But there is a section that, you know, I understand it as, you know, they trucked a lot of dirt out of there. It's depleted, you know, so it is a zoned industrial. I think we shouldn't lose that. I think the town could contemplate maybe leasing that out. You could control the permitting process from start to finish. You could advertise and try to get exactly the type of business that would fit within this community, because it is under the control of the Board of Selectmen. So I think, you know, a meeting on that subject and a dialogue and a brainstorming session would be fruitful for the town. You could try to lease out some of that property if it was an industrial park, and the rents generated from that industrial park could service that $350,000 of debt. You could make that pay for itself. So I was, you know, opposed to purchasing that property for 4 times assessed value, if anybody you remember a few years ago. But you know what? I'd like to take the lemons and make lemonade out of it, and I do have a business mind, and I think if I was on the Board of Selectmen, I could make that somewhat profitable and make it self-sufficient, which it isn't right now. Right now, it's a drain on our finances, and we need to do something about it. So I support that, carving off a piece of that property for industrial use, and having the town control it and generate some either rent or some additional tax revenue, or both. So that's what I believe.
Thank you. Ms. Gorski.
Thank you. I agree with Ed and Dan, and Bill Dunn, who I've served with this past year, has cited that many, many times due to the huge amount of money that was paid for that property, that we could do it and put safe business there, not impact the aquifer. It's a great location. As Ed said, the water line's down there. We need to look at these opportunities, and I'd be happy to work with these gentlemen when they serve on the Board of Selectmen.
Thank you. And Mr. Wood.
I'd be committed to a phased, logical approach to that. It goes back to what I said in my opening statement, that what we do today can be undone tomorrow if it need be. And I think too often people run into, oh, I have the solution now, let's just go throw some business up there, and then 10 years from now there's a problem and we can't get rid of the business for whatever might happen. So I think a logical, phased, slow approach to bring in those businesses down there, but let's really think about the process and what the impact's going to be to that area before we just go head first and say this is a solution that we need.
Thank you. So before we move on to closing statements, I just want to thank all of you for those really good questions. I think that went very well. So now you'll each have 2 minutes to make a closing statement. We're going to go in reverse order. So Mr. Wood, you have 2 minutes.
Being Wood, I never get to go first. I'd like to thank everyone for coming. This was very productive. I learned a lot. I obviously don't know everything. I think everybody up here has the best interest of town in their mindset. We have different backgrounds and different philosophies, but we're all engaged to do what's best for the town. I look forward to serving the town in whatever capacity you guys deem fit. I am an alternate on the zoning board, but I would like to be on the Board of Selectmen. The new 5-member board should be a positive effect on the operation of the town government, regardless of who is voted in. And I believe that I am the candidate to make some change in town and bring this town forward. I will add that if you want change, you got to vote for change or make change yourself. But let's do some things and move forward.
Thank you. Mr. Watson.
Thank you, everyone, for showing up, and thank you to the League of Women Voters again for holding the forum. We're embarking upon a new territory with a five-member board. There'll probably be some growing pains. I know I can work with the members of the board. I think I can bring a different perspective. I think I can be business-friendly. I hope to be part of the board, and we'll all work together, and hopefully you all come out and vote on Monday. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. McDonald.
Thank you again, everybody, for listening to me. Appreciate you coming down and hearing what we all have to say. But I believe with my ability, my experience, my values, I think I'm a good fit for the Board of Selectmen. I hope you think so. Ask for your vote on Monday. I'm straightforward. If you haven't figured that out yet, I say what's on my mind. There'll never be any doubt as to where I stand, ever. Okay, so that's what you get. So appreciate it, and I promise you integrity. I'm not going to be right all the time. If I'm wrong, I'll apologize. If I mess up royally, I'll resign, but I don't plan on doing any of that. I'm going to bring my A game for the people of Groveland, and I'm going to try to do a top-notch, bang-up job for you. I'll bring my skills as a CPA, a lawyer, a real estate professional. I'll bring all of that, my family values. I'm going to bring that and put them to work for the people of Groveland. Thank you.
Thank you. And Ms. Gorski.
Thank you. As Tip O'Neill said, Boston politician, he always said, no, you didn't ask me for my vote, so I'm going to ask you all for your vote when you vote on Monday. I thank you for coming here tonight. I thank the League of Women Voters. They're wonderful. Thank Valerie for her service to this community. One of the candidates here, I think, has a sign that says it's time for new leadership. Well, I'm not new leadership, but there's nothing wrong with old leadership. And I've been here for a very long time. I'm a voice of reason. I have many years of experience. I think experience matters. And if you call me or you see me on the street and you want to come in and talk with all of us, I'd be happy to have you come in. The door is always open. Change is good, but experience matters, and being a voice of reason is very important, in my opinion. Thank you all.
Well, thank you all very much. So, so now I will call up two individuals to talk about the ballot question to amend the Community Preservation Act surcharge. So I'm inviting up Mark McCabe and Michael Dempsey. Thank you so much. So before Mr. McCabe is on the left, Mr. Dempsey on the right, and before you gentlemen speak, I was actually going to read the question that'll be on the ballot.
That's fine.
Just to set the record. So on Monday, you all will be voting on this question. Shall this town amend its acceptance of sections 3 through 7, inclusive of Chapter 44B of the general laws, as proposed by a petition signed by at least 5% of the registered voters of this town? This question involves amendment of the town's acceptance of General Laws Chapter 44B, Sections 3 through 7, also known as the Community Preservation Act, CPA, under which the town assesses a surcharge on real property of 3% of the tax levy, as determined annually by the Board of Assessors. The funds collected under the CPA, including the surcharge collected by the town and an annual distribution of matching funds from the Massachusetts Community Preservation Trust Fund are a dedicated source of funding for the three purposes of the CPA: open space, including land for recreational use, historic resources, and community housing. The town accepted the CPA at the 2004 annual town election, approving a surcharge of 3% on the annual tax levy on real property and exempting, number one, property owned and occupied as a domicile by any person who qualifies for low-income housing or lower moderate-income senior housing in the town, as defined in Section 2 of said CPA. And number two, the first $100,000 of the value of each taxable parcel of residential real property. Each year, the town has spent or set aside at least 10% of the estimated annual revenues, which include the surcharge and matching funds provided by the state for each of the three purposes of the CPA. The present amendment would decrease the surcharge from 3% to 1%. If approved, the lower surcharge would be collected beginning in fiscal year 2016. So, Mr. McCabe, Mark McCabe, will discuss why the CPA surcharge should be reduced to 1%, and Michael Dempsey will discuss why the CPA surcharge should remain at 3%. They'll each have 5 minutes to explain their position, and we will allow them to answer questions. We'll give a two-minute answer, and we'll start with Mr. McCabe.
Well, thank you. I'm Mark McCabe. I've been in Groveland for 53 years. And first of all, I want to thank the three candidates and the incumbents. It sounds like they support this. First thing I want to say is a lot of people think that I'm against the CPA. I'm not against the CPA. I just think that, as Mr. Watson said, we got to sit back, go back, and we have to just go over the things we've already gotten right now. First of all, I went on social media tonight. I'm administrator on the town crier, and somebody had put on there all the things about Groveland Community Preservation Committee, 10 years of Groveland Community Preservation projects. Well, first of all, I know VZ Park wasn't purchased with CPA money, but when we bought VZ Park, this is for instance now when we buy things, they said self-supportive, no burden on the taxpayer. Well, I see here VZ Park roof, 2007, CPA money, $11,560. VZ Park electrical, 2007, $39,520. One of the instances that we have. Never mind, the highway department mows the lawn, highway department plows it. Second thing is, on here it says we bought Ruth Manning land, $390,000. Let's not forget, $13,000 loss of real estate taxes. Bill Angelini's land, $835,000. $17,000 worth of real estate taxes we got to make up. Busing land, we got a 20-year note on that. Never mind, we lost over $20,000. Where are we going to make up all this money? This is money we're going to make up somewhere. Thank God we have National Grid in Chesterton now building a new building. It's probably going to bring us in $50,000. So I think what we should do is we should just step back, and believe me, one of the nicest things I think we did is the park, is the Washington Park. I used to drive by there all the time on the way to Bradford doing work, and I says, Jesus, those mounds of dirt there. It's too bad we can't do something there. That's one of the, I think, nicest things was doing is that. Washington Hall, what a mess. $317,000. They need another $30,000. Can somebody tell me what they're going to do with this thing? You should have torn it down. It's a waste of money. So I don't want to get into every certain project and everything. I was a cemetery commissioner for 4 years. I don't see anything wrong with that arch. They sandblasted that arch 20 years ago, and there was no structural problems. It's just certain stuff like this. I think that the CPA money is being spent like monopoly money. In other words, you can take a big pail of sand. You bring it over to the cemetery. Oh, here you go. Here's $70,000 for you. You bring it over to Washington Hall. Oh, here's another $317 for you. By the way, when you get done, if you need another $30,000, we'll give you some more for a septic. Hey, what are you going to do with that place anyway? Well, we don't know. That's just the way I feel about some of these projects. So I think it's time that we just step back, like Ed Watson said, go through what we have. And you know something? if you want a tax, how about if we do something different? Let's take 1%, let's reduce this to 3 to 1%. Then maybe somebody can do a warrant article for 1% just for the roads. Because our roads, if I lived on Governor's Road right now, which I grew up on, I wouldn't want to be selling my house because the way that road looks. We need, at least if we had 1% towards roads, we'd know where the money's going, not just throwing out over here to this project and that project. Since 2005, the tax rate in town has gone up approximately 50%. The rate was under $10 a thousand in 2005, and now it's close to $15 per thousand. With a debt exclusion next year and the looming high school renovations or a new high school, taxes will certainly increase $2 to $3 per thousand more. We'll end up being another Amesbury. $20 tax rates, low home values, and you know what that happens. For every $1 of tax increase, the average home in town drops $10,000 on the market. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Dempsey.
Thank you for this opportunity. And Mark, I'm sorry that you feel that way. I can kind of understand some of the things that you've said, but I thought that I would just start by reiterating what CPA is for. CPA, by state statute, not by anything to do with Groveland, is for 4 purposes: open space, community housing, historic preservation, and recreation. They're all areas that, unfortunately, they tend to get on the bottom of the list as far as when we do things in town. So by adopting the CPA, it enabled us to address some of these long-term issues. So we've had CPA in place since 2005. It was voted by the voters to fund it at 3%. In that time, we have raised $2.3 million and locally, and we were matched by the state of $1.76 million. So that's an average of 82% per year. Some of those years was 100%. Now with the match coming from the Registry of Deeds, there was a slow period in real estate, so some of the numbers went down to claim that, you know, this year it's going to be 18%. Well, it will be 18% perhaps if we have 1%, but because Groveland has 3%, we get more of a match. We get to qualify for the second round and the third round, so that's why we've actually done so well. So, you know, it's an interesting idea to think that we are doing something good for town by reducing the tax down to 1%. But in reality, we're really shooting ourselves in the foot. We're going to reduce the amount of money that we receive from the state with the match, and also our revenue by over 75%. It's going to really not help us to address some of these long-term issues that we've been able to address with CPA. So Mark mentioned some of the projects, and you know, he mentioned the land that we purchased, Angelini and Mattingly, parcels that were bought last year. We voted that in 2013. Both of those properties, besides being open space, allow us to put 2 more wells on that aquifer that they're protecting. So not only are we protecting the aquifer and receiving the benefit of the open space, we're also allowing us to put 2 more wells there in the future. So we don't want to jeopardize that. We protected a lot of historic resources. As I said the other night at town meeting, you know, we don't have too many historic buildings, and that's why we don't have too many historic buildings, because they're difficult to keep when you don't have a lot of money to keep them up. So we've been able to do that with CPA. The other thing we've done is we've been able to do a couple of recreation projects. So I think that you know, we have to think about what this reduction to 1% is going to do. there is the issue of affordability. No one likes paying taxes. I don't like paying taxes. But when you really think about the match that we're getting, there's no other tax that we collect that gets matched by the state, and it's matched by the Registry of Deed funds. So we're able to really cash in on that. A lot of other towns are going to be happy to take our match that we're not going to get by lowering to 1%. So all in all, I think we really have to think about it. It sounds interesting. It sounds like a no-brainer. Why wouldn't you vote to reduce your taxes? The average person, the average homeowner, the average value of a home pays approximately $110 a year for the CPA. And by voting to reduce it to 1%, you're going to save yourself approximately $73 a year. So it's something to really think about when you have to take into account the match. What are we going to lose by that match?
Thank you. So we can have a couple of questions from the audience. Yes. So you can go to that microphone there and just identify yourself, please.
Erin Merrill, 14 Summer Street. I guess my question is, a lot of these projects the town would not approve as a debt override, say for the projects, for the 6 projects that were on the town meeting. How would we fund those otherwise? Would you be in favor of raising taxes every year for these projects that need to be done, so that we're not in a situation where years down the road, instead of taking care of it now, it becomes something like the arch falling down? Instead of fixing it and making it stable now at the cemetery, waiting 5 years so that it becomes more of a money for the town to spend. Where would you come up with the money to do these projects if we didn't have the CPA at the full 3%?
Thank you. So I'll let Mr. McCabe.
Well, we have 1.7 million in there now. I think there's just so many projects coming in because they know we have this money. We don't need all these projects. I think the Washington Park project was good. There's some other ones in there good, but people are inventing projects because they know they have this money in there. And it's just getting ridiculous. And I know I'm not going to go back to the days where I was at the Shanahan School and I survived on 2 teeter-totters and 1 ball field at Washington Park. I know things have changed, and believe me, I've never had any kids, and I'm not one of these people, oh, geez, the guy doesn't have any kids, this is the way it is. It's not true. I donate to the baseball fields, I've donated to this, I've donated to that. It has nothing to do with that at all. But people are inventing projects because they know the money's in there. And eventually, you know, people are just getting sick. I went down to the 55 and older, and that's where I got most of my stuff, and those people are over there saying I'm up to $4,100 in real estate taxes. They don't even want to hear what I had to say. They just want to say $80, $90, give me that thing, you know? So a lot of the time I didn't even have to explain a lot of it, and it's just getting ridiculous, and we got to look at our tax base, and like I said, people are just inventing a lot of these projects because they know the money's in there, and everybody wants their share. So I think we can get by right now with 1%, all right? And like I said, I'm not against another tax, but how about a 1% for the roads so we can get to these trails, so we can get to these places? Our roads are deteriorating, you know? So I just think we got to focus on some other places.
Thank you. And Mr. Dempsey.
Well, you know, Mark, that's a good idea, but in the big picture of things, remember that if we put aside that 1% for our roads, instead of putting it into CPA, albeit you'll be able to spend it only on roads, but it's going to be 1%, that's what we're going to get. Whereas if we had CPA funds, we'd be able to take advantage of that match. But to answer Erin's question, you know, I think probably everyone here knows what's going to happen without CPA. Without CPA, we're not going to be able to take care of these problems. We're not going to be able to rehabilitate Washington Park or take care of the cemetery, or we're not, you know, whatever comes down the pike. Obviously, there's money there now. Yes, there's money there now. But when that's spent and we don't have CPA to rely on, when other things come up, we're not going to be able to do it. We're going to go right back to where we were before CPA, when we couldn't fix these things, when there was nowhere to go except to the taxpayer for an override or a tax increase.
Thank you. Mr. McDonald, I'll get you next, but okay. So I'm just going to take her first.
Did you point to me?
Yes, I did.
Kathleen Kearney is 7 Abbott Road, which incidentally, the last time it was paved was 1964, and it's nothing but potholes. I'm on the CPA committee as a representative from the Housing Authority, and I've been at most of the meetings, and I'm always amazed at what people think is free money. State money is taxpayers' money as well. It's not free money. They're not giving you something. You've paid that into it also. Other than $80,000 or $70,000 being spent on a study that was done 5 years ago, exact same study for affordable housing, not another penny has been spent on affordable housing out of that. It's talked about, and it's asked for more money and more money to be spent on studies, and it just doesn't go anywhere. So it hasn't been spent on affordable housing, none of it, except for studies that were done, duplicate studies by the same architects. So I sit and I'm amazed. I thought at first, being on the CPA, the committee could make an intelligent choice about what to accept and what not to, and I was told from the very beginning, it's not our job to accept the projects or not. It's our job to present them to the town. So it's not always quite what it's presented. We have had a project that came back 3 times, I think the Finance Committee can address that, came back a couple of times as the final amount, and it still sits vacant. Washington Hall was a wonderful project, but it's gone nowhere. It's gone way over budget, and there's still more money needed, either through donations or whatever. So it's not that I think CPA has a wonderful intent, but...
Do you have a question?
Am I supposed to have a question? I'm sorry.
No, that's okay.
I had a speech. So my question is, how do you look at that? How do you address that?
Okay.
Sorry, I didn't.
That's all right. That's okay.
I ran out of time.
That's okay. So, Mr. McCabe.
Can you repeat the question?
How do you? So how do you feel about the way it's administered? Is that a fair?
Well, I totally agree with what you're saying. It's just, the people are saying, well, how are we going to fund these projects? Well, the problem is you're making more projects with the CPA money. Now you got to fund these projects. Let's just scale back, like Mr. Watson said, and everything's flown by. Everything that Mr. Dempsey wanted is flown. He's not denied anything. Anything that people want, they get, and that's what's happening. Nothing's getting denied on any of these things, I mean, geez, it's just about time we scale everything back here and, let's start worrying about, like I said, let's worry about the roads. We got a trail thing coming in now. The trails are going to look better than the streets, We got a road commissioner we had a road study committee, like we said before. And what happened was everybody got their roads done, and then all of a sudden they stopped because, well, ours is done. We don't want, and that tax increase was nothing compared to the 3% CPA that we were having that roads in. And we were getting stuff done. Bobby Akelian is doing a great job. Joe Ryan and John Soucy were all on the committee, and the roads are going, and all of a sudden, Bear Hill Road, we had ours done. It's already deteriorating again. We had the washout on Main Street, and everybody had to come down Center Street, going to work into Boston. Now they found Bear Hill Road. Bear Hill Road's now all worn out. Everybody from New Hampshire knows where that is. So, this is what's happening. So,
Okay. So, Mr. Dempsey, I want to give you an opportunity to address that.
Well, I hear my name bandied about here and Facebook, a few other places. I get all these things done. I'm going to vote for me for selectman. If it were true, believe me, it'd be a lot different. But obviously, I don't serve on the Community Preservation Committee alone. There's 9 members. There's someone from the Finance Board on there, someone from the Selectmen, someone from Housing Authority, Affordable Housing Committee, the Planning Board. So I'm not that powerful. I cannot twist people's arms to do things the way that I want to do them. This is a committee that makes these decisions. The other interesting thing is that many of the people who complain about how the committee works, I've never seen them come to a committee meeting or even ask questions through email or any other way. So, I mean, we're an open meeting. You can come anytime to a community preservation meeting and express your ideas. And, you know, I just like to repeat that, you know, the idea of cutting back to 1% really needs to be looked at seriously, not purporting all these other complaints that people bring. And it's all about what Groveland is going to get from the state. Again, these are state fees collected from the registry. There's plenty of other towns. There's over 150 other towns, cities and towns who have CPA, and they'd be more than willing to take the match money that we are not going to take.
Can I just say one thing about that?
Thank you.
Do you mind?
Well, we are going to be wrapping up, though.
Okay, can I
actually.
just, one thing
So
about...
just make it very quick,
Yeah,
30
Mr.
seconds.
Dempsey says that he's not the only one on the committee. There's other people from the library and everything else, but apparently those three of those people in that committee knew nothing about that letter that got sent out in the tax bill.
Okay. So, okay. So no, actually, we don't, no, we really do. We have the room till 9:15. I think that was we can carry on? Oh, okay, fine. Mr. McDonald, okay. And then I'll take the gentleman in the back, if that's fine. That's okay.
Daniel MacDonald, 2 Laker Lane, individually as a committee member of ZBA, okay? Nothing to do with that. There's a question for Mr. Dempsey. Center Street project. CPA funds, good thing, right? Helps out open space, purchase things we need, want, preserve the community. Why wasn't that Center Street property bonded through CPA funds so that the debt service could be paid for through CPA funds? It seems to me like we got a double tax going on here. So you got your cake and you eat it too on CPA. You can continue to spend on new projects, and yet we're going to get a separate bill on that debt exclusion. Why shouldn't the CPA funds and the money to preserve the aquifer and the open space be paid for through CPA funds? And it wasn't. So that's my question to you. Why wasn't it bonded?
Sure. When the town of Groveland decides to do something, usually what happens is one individual or a committee may have an idea about what to do. So they bring that idea to whoever is going to make the decision. Maybe it goes to the selectmen. In some cases, when it comes to buying land, some people have brought the idea to the Community Preservation Committee. The Community Preservation Committee can decide, this fits the qualifications for CPA, and if they bring a proposal together, it may be recommended to town meeting to do it. Unfortunately, there's only one board in town that really has control, and that's the Board of Selectmen. This Board of Selectmen is ultimately in control of land purchases and how they're paid for. And so I think, as I said, I don't have all of these powers. It was not my decision to do it the way it was done. But I think what I do remember is that the selectmen wanted to get it voted on. They wanted the people of Groveland to vote for it. And that's what we did. So it wasn't voted just at town meeting. It was voted at town meeting, and it passed there by a wide majority. And then it was put before the voters after that in 2013. And at that time,
That's okay.
62%
okay.
of the town's voters agreed to buy it. Beep, beep.
Well, I thought it was important you were sharing factual information about how it went, so that's why. Okay. All right. Well, the question was addressed to Mr. Dempsey. Mr. McCabe, do you want to answer as well?
Good question, Dan. No, I'm all set.
You're all set. Okay. So, yes.
Bill Dunn, 10 Garrison Street, and very seldom, if people know me in the town, I don't like to call myself a selectman. I sit on the board with Miss Selectwoman Gorski. She got up early and she said, it's time to slow things down. And I'm not here campaigning for anyone. I'm telling you, as we sit on a board, how we think. It is time to slow things down. Mr. Dempsey should not be picked on. He should not be criticized or anything else. He works hard. He's very, very adamant in what he believes. But on the same token, I believe there's enough money in that account that we can slow things down to the point if we can keep some money going in the account, keep the account growing, let it slow to the point where it's still growing, and possibly do one project a year, pay for it 100% out of CPA money, and we can keep the CPA going, and also we can repair our roads. Like Mr. McCabe is saying, we do need the roads done. We do definitely need to get the road study back, as Mrs. Gorski said earlier. She's on the board with us. We talk about it all the time. It's time to turn our eyeballs in a different direction in the town and slow the CPA down. And you know, it's a good thing. It's a good thing to have the money. Let me tell you something. We could not pay for the Washington Park. I can tell you, we have no money. We're flatlined, and the CPA money is paying for that park. We could have never done it. Thank you for your hard work. But on the same token, I don't believe we should bring 7 projects through the way we did, and that's all I'm saying. Let's slow it down to 1 project a year, and that's it. Thank you.
So, okay, I didn't realize it wasn't a question. Okay. So we do have a question here, this gentleman here. And you can just come to this microphone. So right here, if you press the button, you can. It just needs to be on. Press the button. There you go.
Okay,
now you're live. Yes.
As an election worker,
Yes.
after people have cast their ballot, I often see disappointed people because they didn't think to turn the ballot over. There's a question on the back of the ballot, and so many people don't even think of that. They want to know why somebody wasn't on a certain ballot. You didn't turn it over. And the machine won't give it back to you. Once it goes in the machine, it's gone. So just tell your friends, if they're going to get down and vote, look on the back of the ballot. Not all ballots are printed on the back, but this one is going to be.
Thank you. So that was a little public service announcement. Thank you. So I'll keep going if you all want to. Okay.
My name is Bill Cook. I live at 10 Esty Way in Groveland. The question I have is I've never had it answered. I've been told by Mr. Dempsey when we bought the 3 pieces of property, it was 1 piece of property we bought, went into executive session, and it ended up being that we didn't spend the CPA money on it, although he negotiated for it. It was the busing property, although we have $1.7 million sitting in the bank, and we continue on for other property issues. What I'd like to see slow down is the property taxes from going up. And that's what concerns me. And that's my question. I won't hit you with any other ones. The only other, well, I'm going to hit you with one other one. We talk about best practices. We had an audit done of the town. Why don't we have an audit done of the CPA and see if everything's done properly? Then everything's out in the open. Thank you.
So, Mr. Dempsey.
Well, once again, I don't understand that question because everything that's done with CPA funds goes through that office over there, okay? And then there's another office over here, the finance director. All it would take, and it's all that I do because I don't track CPA funds myself, is I go into that office over there for the finance director, and she gives me the report of what we've spent, every single penny on CPA funds, and every single penny that comes in on CPA funds. And so if you looked at this chart that was on the town website, right there, it's got the complete answer of everything that you need to know. Everything you need to know about what projects we funded, how much was spent for them, how much we took in, how much we were matched. It's all there. And if you want the exact detail of it, if you want every single detail of it, our finance director has that. So I don't understand these questions about saying that you don't know what's been spent on CPA funds or what we've taken in or where the money's gone, because that information is available right over there. And the finance board of anybody should know that. So, you know, I'm not trying to be a wise guy, but I honestly don't understand the question that keeps coming up about that.
Thank you. Well, you know, I think he answered it. Actually, I think we do have to move along. I think we do have. Well, okay.
Well, are we gonna have a debate
No,
here?
no, I actually no.
Well,
It's just one more
well,
thing, and then we're
well,
going
this
to
is
wrap
this
up.
is the problem. He's bouncing it back at me, so I have to answer it. And the question is, we have not. Yes, she has books, but we don't know what when income comes in from VC Park and all this other stuff that happens with CPA.
Yeah.
All the CPA money. There's a lot of different avenues that happen within CPA that we don't know all those line items, exactly what's going on. You've never handed us, like I said last night, telling me to look at a website is disrespecting the finance board. You should be giving us paperwork, exact figures, line items, everything and what's going on in that budget. And I know you stand up for your cause. I understand that. But I have to stand up for what the whole town is looking at. And that's what I'm arguing about. We have not been shown all the books. Never have.
Okay. Yeah, so I think, yes, okay, that's fine. So I actually, I am gonna, because it is getting late. So I'd like to, many thanks for all the candidates for joining us this evening. Well, okay, I actually don't want anyone to leave unhappy, so go ahead.
No, I'm also on the Community Preservation Board.
Okay. Do you have
And
a question?
I need to speak up in defense of all this. I consider it my job to see if everything presented to us meets those 4 qualifications. I see it as your job. I don't have to approve of all those jobs. If it meets those 4 qualifications, I'm going to present it to the town. Then it's your decision what we do and what we don't do. I don't think it's fair for me to be the one picking and choosing, okay, I like Washington Park, but I really don't like this project. I want to present all of them to you. You make the decision. And I think that's how most of us feel.
Okay, thank you. I wasn't trying to, so, Mr. Osborne, and then this, after this, we.
You did mention, Mike, that if we keep the 3%,
Yep.
there are a series of rounds that means that we will get more money or additional money. If we only have 1%, we'll only get a certain round. Could you elaborate on that a little
Yes.
bit?
So I have an example from last year. So last year in Groveland, we collected $242,000 and change from local revenues. So during the first round, we were matched $76,000 approximately. So that's, you know, roughly about 32% or so. Then, because we have 3%, we got to go to the second round. During the second round, we were matched $61,000 and change. And then, because we have 3%, we get to go to the third round. On the third round, we got $38,000 and change. So our total match turned out to be 72.46% of the $242,000 that we collected locally. With 1%, we would not get to go to round 2, not get to go round 3. So in the case, it's hard to explain, but in the case of us only having 1% in 2014, we would have only collected 80,000 locally, and we would have got a match of 25,000 for that, and that's it. We wouldn't go to round 2, we wouldn't go to round 3, because that's the way the state works it.
We would have lost how much?
Well, in 2014, we would have lost $312,000 between local and the match.
Okay.
Give it back.
So
We don't need it.
So that I was going to say, I wanted to give you an opportunity to
We
respond,
don't need
Mr.
it.
McCabe.
We don't
but then-
need it. So what? We don't get the match. Give it back to them. Let another town have it. We got enough. It's just more stuff we're gonna buy, more stuff we're gonna maintain. It's gonna be, pretty soon, this town's gonna be giving a homeless man a Cadillac Escalade and then tell him, register it, insure it, and put gas in it. And that's the way it's gonna be with this town. So I just say, give it back to them and see you later.
Okay. Well, thank you, gentlemen, very much for sharing that information with us. And I'd like to thank all the candidates for joining us this evening, and Ruth Race and Valerie Osborne and Carol Pelchat for organizing and working at this event tonight. Groveland's annual town election is Monday, May 4th. Polls are open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. at Town Hall. This program will be rebroadcast on local cable channel 9, and many thanks to Chris LaCourie for recording it. If you're interested in the League of Women Voters of Greater Haverhill, you can visit their website at lwv-gh.org. Thank you and good evening.
If I may have your attention, I really need your help in putting the chairs away. We need to clear this room. So any